they said no QE3 coming, I still think debating whether or not there is QE or not QE is immaterial when the point really is that the economic condition starts to we get really...
Treaty. The Vienna Convention of 19 that establishes that imperative rights do not allow to be contravened. And if another law were to emerge, all existing treaty would be null and void. That's what that treaty says. And it also says, in the application of these articles, the convention allows countries to demand before international law and justice that these treaties be respected. It says in Article 66B. Additionally, the American Convention on Human Rights of 1969 and the Anti-Terrorism 1977 treaty, which says the country can reject extradition when they fear the person may be persecuted for expressing their opinions. The African Charter, the Cartagena Convention, and the Charter of the European Union of 2000. Ecuador's government thinks it's important to highlight that the norms and principles recognized in all of those quoted treaties, that those have preeminence over the internal laws of those countries. It's a universal law. Intangible rights are respected by those norms and conventions for the protection of human rights against what any other country might say internally. The respect of human rights should be consolidated in an ecumenical manner. Mr. Assange, ever since Mr. Assange requested diplomatic asylum, we have held in-depth talks with the United Kingdom, Sweden, and the United States, and we have appealed to receive guarantees from the United Kingdom, strictest guarantees, so that Mr. Assange could face without obstacles the judicial process in Sweden, so that once those issues in Sweden were dealt with, that he would not be extradited to a third country. That's what we have been seeking in Ecuador. Sadly, and despite our repeated attempts, the United Kingdom at no moment accepted or showed any willingness to negotiate on that issue. Mr. Assange's lawyers requested to the Swedish authorities that they took his declarations at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Ecuador offered the Swedish authorities its willingness to make this meeting possible and to not create any obstacles whatsoever, so that that process in Sweden could be pursued. And this has been done before, and even in the case of Sweden, they have done it before, but yet they did not accept. And we asked the Swedish government to guarantee that Mr. Assange would not be extradited to the United States, and again, they rejected any such commitment to that. Finally, Ecuador sent a communique to the United States to request to know their position related to the Assange case. And we asked first, is there a legal process or the intention of a legal process against Mr. Assange in the United States and the founders of WikiLeaks? Number two, in the event that that were the case, what type of legislation and in what conditions and under what maximum penalties would those people be subjected? And third, is there the intention to seek Mr. Assange's extradition to the United States? And the response from the United States has been that it cannot offer any guarantees. With these precedents in mind, the Ecuadorian government, loyal to its tradition to protect those who seek refuge with us and in our diplomatic missions, has decided to grant diplomatic asylum to Mr. Assange. The citizen, Julian Assange, by the President of the Republic of Ecuador this day, and on the request for asylum made on the 25th of June. Because of the fears expressed by Mr. Assange, we believe that his fears are legitimate, and there are the threats that he could face political persecution if the measures aren't taken to avoid them. The government of Ecuador is confident that the British government will know how
to remind you of the breaking news we have just heard from the Foreign Minister of Ecuador, the country, the President Correa, will be granting asylum to the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. There was concern, said the Foreign Minister Ricardo Patino, that Mr. Assange might be extradited from Sweden to the United States to face charges over the leaking of US diplomatic cables. You can see Mr. Assange there. At the moment, he is inside Ecuador's London embassy. He's been there for 2 months, hoping to avoid extradition to Sweden. He is wanted there for questioning over sexual assault allegations. So this news just in, breaking news, Ecuador will be granting asylum to the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. That is the latest we have from the Foreign Minister Ricardo Patino, who was speaking just a moment ago at a press conference in the Ecuadorian capital, Quito. Stay with us here on BBC World News for continuing coverage of this significant decision and the diplomatic implications.
Gibt jedem jedem Arbeitslosen Brot, wo
dir nicht vorstellt. Ich bin durchaus in der Lage, mir selbst eine Freundin zu suchen.
Oh, Lennart. Du erinnerst mich an die komische Geschichte von dem Mann, der ist...
Ich bin jetzt schon im Alter, wo es mir so sehr schwer fällt, allein da ohne Kleidung Kirche zu gehen. Ja, ich meine, da muss ich erst mal eine Stunde konzentriert zuhören. Ja, hast du die Ohren auf? Also, du fühlst dich fit genug für die Kirche. Was ist denn Michael oder nein? Ja, aber wahrscheinlich genau deswegen, weil ich da vor ein paar Tagen wieder meine Richtigkeiten habe. Ratzen, ja, jetzt musst du finden. Ja, aber der Ratzinger hat auch was.
Es hat sich gezeigt, dass sie die Einkauf bewachen, aber nicht die Chance.
Und? Wie ist das gelaufen?
Eigentlich ganz gut soweit. Ich habe dieser super heißen Schnecke gezeigt, wie man das Admin-Passwort umgeht. Da wurde der Manager misstrauisch. Naja, um es kurz zu machen, die haben eine Arrestzelle im Shopping-Center. Nur zu deiner Info, geh nicht nochmal mit einem falschen Schnurrbart hin. Sie mögen zwar keine Genies sein, aber das durchblicken sie trotzdem. Freundinnenpakt in Anspruch nehmen. Bist du so verzweifelt? Nein, ich will das, was du hast. Ich will eine Frau in meinem Leben.
Heiliger Bimbam, wie kann so viel Flüssigkeit in einem Kaffee sein?
Um das klarzustellen, eine wie Bernadette, nicht wieder eine Nähe. Ich weiß, was du meinst.
Ja, Entschuldigung. Schlag den Star, Samstag 20:15 Uhr, Pro 7.
So, aber gibt es keinen Zucker oder ist das irgendwie? Ja, mit der Breite der Marmelade unten drunter schmeckt das schon, aber oben drauf finde ich, da fehlt Zucker. Aber vielleicht später dazu mehr, aber erstmal, das muss uns erstmal über die Fallen zusammen. Das fangen wir erstmal an. Gut, wir fangen jetzt an, erstmal der Reihe nach. Gebratener Ingwerlachs mit Kokosspinat und Reis. Zunächst mal schauen wir, wie der Lachs gegart ist. Das ist nicht einfach, der muss in der Mitte schön rosa sein. Und da der Unterschied dick ist, gucken wir mal in der Mitte, wie es ist da. So, das kann man hier sehen. Der Lachs ist sehr schön gegart. Saftig. Mit Ingwer verfeinert. Gute Konsistenz. Bisschen Salz fehlt, ansonsten schmeckt er lecker. Also was beim Spinat nicht fehlt, ist Chili, das kann man sagen, das reicht auf jeden Fall. Ansonsten schmeckt nach Kokos, Spinat ist auch gut gegart, kann man nicht sagen. Und dazu gibt es einen Mandelreis. Also, ich bin ehrlich, insgesamt, wer auch immer das gemacht hat, sehr gute handwerkliche Ansätze. Auch Umsetzung gut. Beim Würzen ein bisschen mehr Ausgiebigkeit, ein bisschen weniger Chili, hier ein bisschen mehr Salz. Der Reis ist okay, aber hier dürft ihr wirklich klatschen. Das schmeckt schon mal ganz gut. Wir kommen jetzt zu Hasennudeln. Aha, gut. Das müsste ich eigentlich noch kennen von meiner Kindheit. Da sehen ja so Nudeln da gefüllt mit so, glaube ich, Quark oder mit so Käse, Minze kommt da auch rein. Ja. Also Teig. Ja, genau. Das habe ich in Erinnerung, so schmecken die auch. Braune Butter. Schubeck würde ich sagen, kannst nicht meckern. Ist in Ordnung, hier Salat. In Ordnung. Jetzt Hähnchenspieß mit Kokos, Kartoffelpüree und Zuckerschott. Kann man mit Kokos, Kartoffelpüree. Habt ihr heute Kokos umsonst bekommen oder was? Da Kokos. Ja, das ist lecker. Wirklich lecker. Gute Konsistenz, muss man sagen. Schmeckt auch. Hätte vielleicht ein Tick mehr Salz, wenn aber es geht einigermaßen. So, jetzt schauen wir das Hähnchen. Fühlt sich schon mal sehr weich an. Das scheint auch hier exzellent gewürzt, großartig. Bohnen, das heißt Zuckerschoten, bissfest, schön grün. Soße ist bekannt, also mit Abstand Gericht Nummer 1 bei den Hauptgängen ist das hier. So. Jetzt haben wir hier den Lachs mit dem Spinat und dem Mandelreis und dazu haben wir ein gebackene Pfefferfrüchte. So, gebackene Pfefferfrüchte, was ist das denn schwer? Muss ich sagen, Leute, ich habe schon schlechter gegessen. Oh. Espresso Sabayone auf einem Mango-Bett. Also Sabayone kann man sagen, das glaube ich kann der Zuschauer auch zu Hause kennen, das ist kein Sabayone, das ist eher eine Kaffeesuppe, aber kein Sabayone, weil Sabayone muss irgendwie aufgeschlagen sein. Nee, das ist abgesetzt, das kann man auch hier sehen, hier schwimmt der Kaffee, kann man auch hier hin tun, das ist nicht kein Sabayone, das ist nichts. So, Mango. Aber das ist jetzt fachlich falsch. Deswegen fahren wir jetzt mal an der Reihe nach. Also was ich schon mal sagen kann ist, das ist jetzt alles nicht sensationell, aber beides ist auf einem bestimmten Niveau gut gemacht. Ich muss sagen, Früchte sind einfach schön gegart, es schmeckt auch nach Pfeffer, das ist gut gewürzt, der Lachs ist schön gegart, der Spinat ist ein bisschen zu scharf, der Reis in Ordnung, die Ingwer-Sachen da sind in Ordnung. Ich finde, das muss weiterkommen. Ich gehe jetzt. Also nochmal. Das ist hier, dass hier Zucker fehlt. Ja, das ist Zucker fehlt hier. Ansonsten sind die konsistenzmäßig okay. Das ist nur vielleicht eine Frage des Geschmacks. Aber ich finde, dass beim Sabayone einfach nichts ist. Es ist kein Sabayone, es ist Wasser und Mango-Püree alleine und das bisschen mit dem Mokka-Wasser. Ja, ich mach's kurz, es ist schmerzhaft, ich weiß. Aber wenn man Sabayone schreibt und Sabayone macht, muss auch ein Sabayone sein. Das ist keiner, definitiv nicht. Deswegen sage ich jetzt mal, ich bin brutal. Leider Gottes, dieses Dessert hat leider dazu beigetragen, dass dieses Gericht hier ausscheidet und das bleibt.
So ist es. Vielen Dank. Liebe Zuschauer, morgen Finale. Es gibt ein rote Beete Carpaccio mit Orangenblütencreme und Kabeljau im Frickteig. Als Vorspeise und als Hauptgang gibt es Kalbsmedaillon mit Grünkohl und einer Kürbis-Paprikasauce. Schauen Sie es an, werden sehen, wird sicher interessant.
70.000 Euro nicht ans holländische Finanzamt. Also deponiere jetzt bitte diesen blöden Brief da, wo sie ihn findet.
Das war so ein schöner Nachmittag.
Danke dir für deine Hilfe.
Ach, Susanne. Weißt du, ich wünschte, wir hätten aus.
Roman, lass uns einfach den Moment genießen. Bitte.
Die Warmwasserpumpe bekommt keinen Strom.
Ja, wieso?
Irgendein Depp hat Anweisung erteilt, im Wellnessgarten eine Zierkirsche zu pflanzen. Beim Ausheben des Pflanzloches haben sie wohl das Stromkabel gekappt. Sag mal, hast du eine Ahnung, welcher Trottel diesen dämlichen Auftrag erteilt hat?
Du wolltest mit mir reden.
Was wollen Sie?
Sie? Oh Gott, ach, kein Problem. Kein Problem, ich habe ja noch was zum Anziehen.
Es geht hier um meine Familie. Ich muss einfach wissen, was wirklich passiert ist. Und welche Rolle meine Oma dabei gespielt hat.
Bei uns brennt die Hütte, Ranga zündet. Es geht um ein Naturgewaltfeuer und wir haben das Experiment. Und wir versprechen eine heiße Sendung mit Steffen Hensler, Sonja Zietlow, Katrin Müller-Hohenstein und Bernhard Hoecker. Die große Show der Naturwunder mit Frank Elstner und mit Ranga Josua. Heute Abend, 20:15 Uhr hier bei uns im Ersten.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren, willkommen zur Tagesschau. Das diplomatische Tauziehen um Wikileaks-Gründer Assange steht in die nächste Runde. Um seiner Auslieferung nach Schweden zu entgehen, war Assange vor 2 Monaten in die Botschaft Ecuadors nach London geflüchtet. Nun hat ihm Ecuador vor wenigen Minuten Asyl gewährt. Ecuadors Außenminister Patiño verwies auf das internationale Menschenrecht. Das britische Außenministerium hat nun bereits damit gedroht, den exterritorialen Status der Botschaft aufzuheben. Also Assange wird Asyl gewährt von Ecuador, aber er sitzt in der Londoner Botschaft. Frank Jahn, wie will man ihn denn außer Landes bringen?
Das ist die große Frage für Julian Assange. Die britische Regierung hat bereits erklärt, dass sie ihm kein freies Geleit gewähren wollen. Seit 2 Monaten ist er in der Botschaft Ecuadors, gleich in der Nähe des Kaufhauses Harrods in Knightsbridge. Das Problem für ihn ist, diese Botschaft hat nur einen Ausgang, eine Tür, durch die er kommen muss. Und davor warten nicht nur Polizisten, sondern auch zahlreiche Unterstützer. Einige wurden heute schon festgenommen. Aber die Polizei steht da, bereit, ihn in Empfang zu nehmen. Und das werden sie auch tun, denn wie soll er sonst nach seinem Flughafen kommen, wenn er Mittel wählen sollte, ein Flugzeug. Er muss aus der Botschaft raus, er muss zum Auto und dort kann ihn die Polizei festnehmen. Das Außenministerium hat auch schon erklärt, es ist sehr enttäuscht von der Entscheidung Ecuadors und es ändert nichts daran, dass man an der Auslieferung von Julian Assange nach Schweden festhalten möchte. Das heißt also, entweder er kommt freiwillig raus oder er wird festgenommen auf dem Weg zum Flughafen.
Nun gibt es offenbar noch eine andere Möglichkeit. Das britische Außenministerium sagt, man könne den exterritorialen Status der Botschaft aufheben. Werden die Briten das machen?
Das ist in der Tat eine Möglichkeit. Es gibt ein Gesetz seit 1987, das es der britischen Regierung erlaubt, den diplomatischen Status einer Botschaft aufzuheben, wenn die nicht mehr konsularisch benutzt wird, also irgendwie anderweitig missbraucht wird. Dass man das tut, halten Beobachter für sehr unwahrscheinlich, denn das würde bedeuten, dass Briten in diese Botschaft
So, we're finishing up earnings season now. We're going to get our normal calendar of economic data. Come September, we've got Jackson Hole meeting coming up. Might be some comments coming out of there. But I think as Europe continues to remain quiet, the longer it stays quiet, it seems like the volcano might be building up there. So I'm sure at some point in the middle of September, we're going to get back into the European headlines dictating our markets. And hopefully we get some clarity there as to the light at the end of the tunnel. Where's this going to go? How's this all going to pan out? Because we're all anxiously awaiting that information.
On the S&P, John, what are the levels you're going to be focused on?
Clearly, psychologically, this 1400 level has been important. It's been bouncing off it back and forth. I don't think we're going to get a lot of volatility today and for the next couple of weeks or so. But if you watch that level there, I think that's one that you can gauge your trading off of.
All right, John Corpina, Meridian Equity Partners. And with that, Deidre, I'll send it back to you at headquarters.
Josh, thanks very much. Well, as you know, it is a very big day for Facebook investors and potential investors. It's the day that the company's IPO lockup begins to expire, meaning that insiders who couldn't sell before, since the IPO in May, can now do so. Dominic Chu has more on the numbers to watch. Dom.
Yes, a lot of numbers here, a lot of big names, a lot of personalities to talk about. So let's get you up to speed on some of the ones you may want to focus just a little bit more on. First of all, obviously CEO and founder Mark Zuckerberg, he's got 444 million Class P. Those are the voting shares, remember them, not the ones they sold in the public offering. Well, Zuckerberg is still restricted from selling, so we're not going to worry about that particular number. But Excel Partners, a huge investor, they have about 143 million shares. They could potentially be one of the parties that sells more shares once this IPO lockup expires. Now, another big name, Peter Thiel, a very well-known name in Silicon Valley, also holds a lot of shares in Facebook. Remember, he had 9.3 million Class B voting shares. He converted to Class A shares, the ones that are publicly traded right now, giving him a total of about 28 million Class A shares. The question is, will he be one of the ones who sells? We don't know just yet. Now, also, another couple big names you want to focus on, Reid Hoffman at LinkedIn, also Mark Pincus at Zynga, both owning substantial amounts of shares, almost 4 million shares for Reid Hoffman, 4.3 million for Mark Pincus in those Class B voting type shares. And if you look at the overall picture, big name institutional investors, right? Elevation Partners, Bono's venture capital shop, 35 million Class B shares there. Greylock Partners, 29 million there. Microsoft, 26 million Class B voting shares. Now, they're viewed more as a strategic partner for Facebook, so not a lot of analysts expecting Microsoft to dump their shares. Goldman Sachs, another 42 million shares to go there for them. Will they be the ones selling? Again, we're waiting to see if they kind of flood the market with these shares. But overall, these are the key takeaway numbers you want to focus on. First of all, shares available for trading so far, about 460 million. Shares freed up today, 271 million. But, Deirdre, 1.9 billion shares will be coming free for trading in the next 9 months. That's something you're going to want to pay attention to.
All right, Dom, thanks very much. Well, staying in tech, Apple TV once considered a sideshow for the iPhone maker, but that could soon change. Bloomberg News is reporting that the iPhone maker is in talks with at least one major cable company to build a new set-top box that could carry live TV. We're going to bring in Brian White right now from Topeka Capital Markets. He is an analyst there. Brian, thanks for weighing in with us on this. So what do you think about this? I mean, this is something that has been talked about for a long, long time. Is it finally happening?
Yeah, so, this is something we started talking about a couple years ago, evidence that they were creating something beyond a hobby in this TV market. And I think this is very encouraging because, one of the puzzles out there in coming out with a full-blown Apple TV, which possibly could come out by the holidays, was how would they get the content and how would they work with the cable operators?
Yeah, because the cable operators are not just going to kind of lie down and take this. I mean, they want their money from somewhere.
You're exactly right. They have Apple has 400 million iTunes accounts. When you take a look at how they would work with each individual content provider, it'd be very, very difficult. So working with the cable providers is an excellent way to go in this route.
All right. Do you have any idea who, if you were just playing a parlor game, I'm not saying officially, who Apple might be speaking with most closely right now?
I think the major ones in the U.S., obviously, Time Warner would be one of them. We don't have any research that suggests that, but I would expect they would be a piece of the puzzle. Potentially Cox, so on and so forth. So I think the game is this, just like we saw in music. If you want to still be in the game, you needed to partner with iTunes and Apple, and I think that's going to work the same way in Apple TV.
But Brian, do you think that the cable operators and the whole TV business is somehow more ingrained, more stubborn, more concrete than the music business? And maybe not, but I'm just curious for your point of view on that.
I think they were under greater threat at the time when Apple came out with iTunes and iPod, certainly.
So was music easier to disrupt, I guess?
I think it was easier to disrupt, but I'll tell you what, over-the-top video is a big threat to the cable operators. We're all using it. I no longer rent videos from a cable operator. I go right to Apple TV for everything. And this is a trend, and kids are doing it even more with just shows and so on and so forth. So I think this is a trend that's going to accelerate. Apple has the opportunity to totally reinvent the TV experience. Not just a great product, but great content and deliver it in a fashion that's very, very easy to use.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what does this mean for Apple? Because, I mean, this could be, for Tim Cook especially, right, the product that just solidifies their dominance, right, or that is later seen as a mistake, right? He has to feel an enormous amount of pressure over this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big move. So I think, this could be a $200 to $400 billion revenue opportunity for Apple. LCD TV,
very big.
A huge opportunity. And more importantly, I think it just solidifies them in the living room and connects their digital grid. The last piece of the digital grid that they don't have is the living room, and this will solidify. This is going to be a big, big product launch, and I hope we'll see it over the next year.
All right, and I heard you say you do think there's a chance that we could see it for this holiday season?
There is a chance we could see an Apple TV by the holiday season, yes.
All right, and we have to assume as well, because Apple is so careful about their marketing, about the way that they do roll products out, this news wouldn't even be out there, right, unless they were pretty close.
I totally agree. There's lots of data points. This was one piece we didn't have. It's very encouraging.
Brian, thanks so much. Cool conversation.
Great,
Brian White joining me there to a peek at capital markets on the idea of Apple TV. Our mover and shaker this morning, John Corzine. It appears the former MF Global chairman and CEO unlikely to face criminal charges over the firm's collapse and the disappearance of about $1 billion in client money. The New York Times says investigators are concluding that chaos and porous risk control at the firm, rather than fraud, allowed the money to disappear. Corzine, though, is still facing a barrage of possible civil enforcement actions. The trustee liquidating MF Global says he is planning to work with customers in a lawsuit against Corzine and other former executives at the brokerage house. When we come back, an interview you won't want to miss. Cisco, solid quarter. The computer networking giant's results, more details on those, and more details on how John Chambers, CEO, sees the global economy. Also, we are approaching a major turning point in the history of recorded music. The shift from CDs to digital. We're going to tell you about it. Some numbers tell a pretty clear story. We're back in just 2 minutes.
The real world affects the financial markets. Take some time and get informed. The countdown to the open of the New York Stock Exchange is sponsored by IG Index. Get thinking.
Between listening to the numbers and listening to your instinct, Duff & Phelps finds the sweet spot that powers sound decisions. Duff & Phelps, financial advisory and investment banking services.
Previously, investing in international stocks required the need and expense of a middleman. With Internex, though, all you need is a computer. Open an account at internex.com today. Your international online broker in Luxembourg.
Well, financial markets change even when you're not at your desk. Bloomberg gives anyone a snapshot of what's moving, plus top news, charting, and ways to track their portfolio right on their iPhone or iPod Touch. Download the free Bloomberg application at the iTunes App Store and stay in touch with your money wherever you are. Bloomberg Mobile.
Central banks are flooding the world with cheap money. Interactive Brokers will lend €1 million at just 2.4% for every €200,000 in a portfolio margin account. See our high dividend scanner for the many hundreds of stocks that yield over 5%. Interactive Brokers, stocks, options, futures, forex, bonds worldwide from one account.
Bloomberg Markets is the world's leading magazine in finance, covering the people, firms, and deals that move markets, featuring the industry players you want to know more about, giving you an insider's view of the world's most private firms, providing in-depth analysis on the business deals that happen behind closed doors, and covering emerging industries with insight and context. If you want the unique access and perspective that can only be found in Bloomberg Markets magazine, subscribe today at BloombergMarkets.com.
You never know where or when the next big story will unfold. Bloomberg, never missing a detail of the global picture.
Between black and white answers and 1,000 shades of grey, Duff & Phelps finds the sweet spot that powers sound decisions. Duff & Phelps, financial advisory and investment banking services.
The real world affects the financial markets. Take some time and get informed. The countdown to the open of the New York Stock Exchange is sponsored by IG Index. Get thinking.
Wait, I wouldn't buy it. Oh, see how it opens. If it gaps up like, 10, 20, who knows how many points, I wouldn't chase it.
That was David Joy in May, the day of Facebook's IPO, urging investors not to buy shares in the social network. Now, since then, the stock has fallen more than 44%, and today, early investors can start selling some of their holdings, which could put further pressure on the stock. So we're going to bring David back. He is at Ameriprise Financial. He is the chief market strategist there. David, thanks for joining us this morning. What can we say you were right?
Well, I just thought that the IPO was a little bit overhyped. Valuations had got ahead of themselves pretty clearly. And I thought it was going to be overpriced when it was released for trading. But I didn't think it would fall this far, quite frankly. I thought maybe it would bottom out around 28. So at $20 a share, it's actually a tougher call. Do you hold on or do you get out of the way? Because a lot of these shares are going to end up in the hand of shorts.
Well, that's
I'm still a little skeptical.
You still are skeptical. I was going to ask you, that's an interesting point, because now it sounds like, from what you say, you do see value because it has fallen so much.
Yeah, I think they still have to prove to the world that they can monetize their franchise, and they'll make some progress, obviously, but they haven't, made a lot of progress, and their revenue growth has been deteriorating. So, as I say, I'm still a little bit skeptical. If I'm a long-term investor at $20, I might be inclined to hold on.
David, it's Dominic here. One of the things we talked about the last time around was about what the client demand was like, how many questions your advisors have been peppered with. Obviously, at Ameriprise, you've got a number of those advisors taking and fielding questions from clients. How much client interest is there now, given that 45% stock drop, in saying, hey, let's call up my financial advisor, maybe I want to get back into some of these shares? And if so, what's your response in that situation, Mike?
Well, I have to say that in my experience, there isn't a lot of interest, quite frankly. I think the overriding sentiment is, gee, I dodged the bullet by not buying on the IPO, and I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to stay on the sidelines. I would expect, however, that, at $20 a share and maybe some of the publicity surrounding this lockup, that maybe you'll start to see some people come in. But I'm not sensing any sort of groundswell to get back into the name.
So, David, you mentioned that some people are on the sidelines with regards to Facebook. What about in general? What are you hearing from your clients? Do they just want to keep their money at home in cash and bonds, or are they willing to take a little bit of risk in stocks?
There's a greater sentiment to stay defensively positioned, but I have to say this rally now has gotten a second wind, if you will. In other words, in the early stages of this move higher from June, it was primarily driven by expectations of central bank easing. The fundamentals were terrible. But in the last couple of weeks, the fundamentals, at least in the U.S., have actually gotten better. And that, I think, legitimizes this rally a little bit. So, I think that maybe we can hang on to some of these gains, and maybe that will bring some investors back into a more aggressive stance. But, again, people are by and large still skeptical. They're not out of the market, but they still like the dividend story and the defensive sector story.
Now, David, is there going to be a shift in leadership right now? Because like you said, those dividend stories, the consumer staple stocks, the telecom stocks, they had been on quite a bit of a tear here. Is there a new shift now? Is there new leadership? What's going to propel that next leg higher in the markets here?
Well, to me, the critical issue right now is what happens with the German court's decision on September 12th, I believe it is, as to the constitutionality of the European Stability Mechanism. If they give a green light that that's something Germany can get behind, then I think what it does is gives the ECB the go-ahead, regardless of the Bundesbank's reluctance, to go ahead and start buying bonds. And to me, that's the critical issue here. It's not the Fed. The Fed really doesn't need to do anything. The critical issue here is the ECB. So that's not going to happen for a couple of weeks. I think we drift and respond to the economic data until we get to that September 12th date.
David, thanks very much for the time. David Joy joining us there, Ameriprise Financial Chief Market Strategist with Dominic Chu and myself. Well, coming up next, a dramatic moment in the courtroom fight between Apple and Samsung. We're back with details.
Today's European Markets Update is brought to you by Interactive Brokers. To find out why Barron's rated us Best Online Broker 2012, visit interactivebrokers.com.
Today's European Markets Update was brought to you by Interactive Brokers. To find out why Barron's rated us Best Online Broker 2012, visit interactivebrokers.com.
Are you ready for business in brief?
Bloomberg Briefs puts the power of Bloomberg to work for you with over 15 industry-specific newsletters available only by subscription. Each offers proprietary data, researched and written by acknowledged experts. Top analysts, dedicated economists, senior business editors, all presented in a concise, uncluttered environment.
It gives me the edge I need.
Go to BloombergBriefs.com right now for your free 30-day trial.
Get ahead, no matter where you are, with Bloomberg TV Plus. It's the video iPad app you've been waiting for. You can watch Bloomberg Television live 24/7. Get original content produced just for mobile, exclusive interviews, top business stories, and get on-demand access to our most popular shows. Plus, with one tap, you'll get real-time market data and news on featured companies and people. Bloomberg TV Plus, always connected, always in the know, everywhere you go. Download the free iPad app today.
There's more to business than the same old news. Bloomberg Business Week gives you the ideas, data, and insight to get ahead. Stories go behind the headlines to tell you something you don't already know. From global economics and companies to politics and technology. It's up to 80% off if you act now. Each week, Bloomberg Business Week goes deeper. Takes you to new places, new people, shows you what other business magazines miss. Go to businessweek-subscriber.com/TV offer for this special Bloomberg TV offer. Act now.
Bloomberg Markets is the world's leading magazine in finance, covering the people, firms, and deals that move markets, featuring the industry players you want to know more about, giving you an insider's view of the world's most private firms, providing in-depth analysis on the business deals that happen behind closed doors, and covering emerging industries with insight and context. If you want the unique access and perspective that can only be found in Bloomberg Markets magazine, subscribe today at BloombergMarkets.com.
We are about 8 minutes from the opening bell. Futures are indicating a higher open from Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York. It is time for the Countdown Blitz. We're going to start with Sarah because I know you are looking at tech dividends.
Tech dividends, a safe place to put your money if you're hungry for dividends. They have grown at a rate of 20% annually. That's better than all other sectors over the past few years. RBC, for one, says it will continue. And David Costin was a guest on Bloomberg Surveillance this morning. He's a chief equity strategist for Goldman Sachs. He told us tech will continue to be the largest payer of dividends in the next year. Companies like Apple, Cisco, and other big ones.
Yeah, Cisco we heard from after the close yesterday. We're going to stay on the tech theme. Thanks, Sarah. Dom, you're looking at this fight between Apple and Samsung. It's all happening in California court.
It's so hot right now, but this is the interesting part here. There are email traffic going back and forth between Google, who makes the Android operating system, and Samsung. In that email, they actually say, quote, since it is too similar to Apple, meaning Samsung's products, make it noticeably different starting with the front side. These are Google emails to Samsung. This was presented during trial to a jury, so you got to watch what happens with this back.
Yeah, that doesn't look too good for Samsung.
Well, a very, very interesting email that the jury's going to have to digest, so we'll see what happens with this particular trial.
Okay, Dominic, Sarah, thanks. We're going to take you now to the New York Stock Exchange because Tesla wants to keep its CEO around for a while, and Josh Lipton, who came to that?
Yeah, that's right, Deirdre. The maker of electronic cards granting Elon Musk an option to buy back 5 million shares as part of a long-term compensation plan to keep the man at the company. Musk, already the largest stockholder of Tesla. Now, the option has a 10-year term and vests in 10 equal installments based on the company meeting these certain milestones like Tesla's market cap reaching $43 billion and aggregate production of 300,000 vehicles. Deirdre.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. Well, we are just a few few minutes from the opening bell. Futures have closed higher. We have the top 10 trades you won't want to miss right after the break. Keep it here on In the Loop.
The real world affects the financial markets. Take some time and get informed. The countdown to the open of the New York Stock Exchange is sponsored by IG Index. Get thinking.
Why do I keep some of my money with America's largest electronic broker? It's safe, and I can exchange different kinds of assets instantly. I can trade or invest in currency, stocks, futures, options, and bonds in 19 countries, 24 hours a day online, and I get the best prices with the lowest commissions and financing rates. Go to interactivebrokers.com and see.
Access a world of opportunity. Trade over 200 products including 50 currency pairs, commodities, indices and stocks. Using multiple trading platforms, all from a single account. Come trade the world at markets.com and take advantage of a global team of market experts backing you up 24 hours a day. To get a welcome bonus, sign up today with the following promotion code. Start trading now at www.markets.com, where the world comes to trade.
You never know where or when the next big story will unfold. Bloomberg Media Services, capital growth, with more than 2,200 news and multimedia professionals at 145 bureaus in 68 countries. Bloomberg, never missing a detail of the global picture.
You've come this far, but you'll never forget what got you here in the first place. Like you, we believe in the timeless value of hard work. Bank of Singapore, building on your values. The real world affects the financial markets. Take some time and get informed. The countdown to the open of the New York Stock Exchange is sponsored by IG Index. Get thinking.
Welcome back here in the Loop. I'm Deirdre Wilson in for Betty Lou. The opening bell just moments away. Our markets team is ready to take us through the opening bell. Dominic Chu, Josh Lipton, Michael McKee, because it is time for the top 10. These are the only trades you need to know about today. I'm going to kick it off with GameStop. The electronic game store company, coming out with earnings this morning that beat estimates. Sales forecast for the next quarter below consensus, so you've had a little bit of push and pull for the share so far in the pre-market. Dom.
Yeah, number 9 on technology. Applied Materials, the chip-making equipment company, is trading lower in the pre-market after being cut at Susquehanna and Credit Agricole. The company may miss fourth quarter projections as customers who slowed down expansion plans really weigh on that stock. So watch Applied Materials. Josh, off to you.
Number 8, Best Buy. Richard Schultz, founder of the electronic retailer, has requested that the board give him the green light to form a group to take the electronics retailer private. Share prices higher in the pre-market, Gabriel.
All right, number 7, HSBC and Credit Suisse, just two of the banks that are handing over employee names to U.S. authorities. The firms are seeking leniency for their alleged role in helping American clients evade taxes. One Swiss lawyer calls the move an unprecedented privacy violation. Mike.
Electronic Arts, they make the Madden NFL game and SimCity. They've been approached by the private equity firms KKR and Providence, according to the New York Post. Newspaper says EA willing to be sold for $20 a share, which is more than a 50% premium on yesterday's closing price. Josh?
Number 5 is Sears. The retailer controlled by Eddie Lampert reported a second quarter loss that was narrower than analysts estimated as inventory management expenses were reduced, increasing the company's gross gross margin. Deirdre.
All right, number 4, Cisco, the telecom giant, releasing quarterly earnings after the bell yesterday. It beats earnings and sales estimates. We're going to get an inside look at what's going on in the company. The CEO, John Chambers, is going to be with us in just a few moments. Down.
Yeah, number 3, from technology to financials, JP Morgan, the bank is just one of 7 financial institutions that receive subpoenas as New York and Connecticut investigate the alleged manipulation of LIBOR. Remember, that's the interest rate market, according to a person familiar with the matter. So watch the big banks there, Mike.
Well, number 2 is Walmart, the discount store, reporting earnings this morning, beating earnings per share estimates by a penny, but sales fell short of analyst estimates. The company also under investigation by lawmakers for alleged corruption, tax evasion, and money laundering. Shares trading lower in the pre-market.
And number 1, Michael, thank you, is Facebook. Already struggling shares of the social networking company could face even more downward pressure today. 270 million shares are freed up, boosting the number of tradable shares by 60%. So you heard it. That's the opening bell. We're going to bring you back down to the New York Stock Exchange. Josh Lipton is there. Josh, take it away.
Hey there, Deirdre. You saw U.S. stock futures advancing here, indicating the S&P 500 will rise for a second day. The traders are quick to point out here that volumes have been plunging to levels we haven't seen really in years. And the market, the S&P, has really been locked in this very tight 10-point range for the past week and a half. You heard me talking earlier to John Corpina of Meridian Equity Partners, and John's point is, with all the uncertainty out there, clearly a lot of traders still think their best bet is just to sit on their hands. But you're the opening bell. Let me get you caught up. The S&P opens up about 0.1%. The NASDAQ is up about 0.2%, and the Dow is up just about 22 points right now, Deirdre.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. A very early look at trade. Josh Lipton joining us there from the New York Stock Exchange. We're going to take you now to the CME. Todd Colvin is with us, Senior Vice President of Interest Rate Products at R.J. O'Brien. Todd, what are you watching today?
Well, we continue to see bond yields creep higher, albeit they're slightly lower today. And it's sort of an effect of what we've heard here, and that is expectations for a possible QE3 maybe being pushed back to first quarter of 2013. And really, the big surprise here isn't so much that yields are going higher, it's that stocks aren't going higher in this. And like Josh just said, we've been in a very tight range. Volatilities are very low, and stocks are kind of in a wait-and-see mode, and without any Fed speak and any real economic data outside of manufacturing the rest of the week, it's going to be difficult for stocks to exceed the year high, which is right around the corner, and S&P's at around 14-13.
Now, Todd, though, why is it that the stocks are in wait-and-see mode, but the bond market is not right now? You just referenced the fact that yields are back up to where they were for 10-year notes, back to where they were in May, 1.8%, but stocks aren't following. Why the disconnect there?
Well, I think 2 reasons why. One, I think buyers are in a buy and hold mode in stocks. But in fixed income, you're seeing less buying out there, possibly from foreign central banks like China. The Fed, if scheduled to buy less bonds in the future, is going to see a little bit of a backdraft there. And likewise, Treasury yields got extremely low. And if you look at the heave we're seeing from German bonds to gilts to U.S. Treasuries, all yields globally are higher, which suggests that perhaps some of the stimulus we've seen over the last 3 years may be taking effect. I'm not saying it is, but if you look at bond market backups that we've seen in yields over the past, say, week and a half, it would suggest that Fed speak and ECB speak is doing the work for it.
Hey, Todd, Josh, let me ask you, traders point out we've been locked in this, 7-session, very tight range. What do you think the catalyst could be to break us out of this at this point?
Well, I think if we see some positive economic data, we did see some warming data in July in the U.S., I think if we continue to see manufacturing expand and we continue to see housing markets not continue to sink and maybe even improve a little bit, that could be one catalyst. And likewise, jobs. So continue to see those job levels rise, maybe see a plus 200,000 non-farm payroll and a sub 8% unemployment. That would be a catalyst to see stocks rise. On the flip side, to see stocks go down, all we need to see is a continuing weakening of the economy. But volatility right now, if you look at the VIX index, is going back to almost 2007 levels. So it pretty much is saying there's no fear in the equity market right now.
Todd, thanks so much. Todd Colvin joining us there from the CME from R.J. O'Brien. Well, still ahead, we're going to be joined by Cisco CEO John Chambers. He is going to tell us what is next in his cost-cutting program and his strategy. The company beat earnings both on the top and the bottom line. Also, it seems as if CDs no longer as sexy as they used to be. Are they now a thing of the past? Well, we have a few more minutes. We're going to show you some data. We're back in just 2 minutes. Stay in the loop.
Are you ready for business in brief?
Bloomberg Briefs puts the power of Bloomberg to work for you with over 15 industry-specific newsletters available only by subscription. Each offers proprietary data, researched and written by acknowledged experts. Top analysts, dedicated economists, senior business editors, all presented in a concise, uncluttered environment.
It gives me the edge I need.
Go to BloombergBriefs.com right now for your free 30-day trial.
World financial markets change even when you're not at your desk. Bloomberg gives anyone a snapshot of what's moving, plus top news, charting, and ways to track their portfolio right on their iPhone or iPod Touch. Download the free Bloomberg application at the iTunes App Store and stay in touch with your money wherever you are. Bloomberg Mobile.
Get ahead no matter where you are with Bloomberg TV Plus. It's the video iPad app you've been waiting for. You can watch Bloomberg Television live 24/7. Get original content produced just for mobile, exclusive interviews, top business stories, and get on-demand access to our most popular shows. Plus, with one tap, you'll get real-time market data and news on featured companies and people. Bloomberg TV Plus. Always connected, always in the know, everywhere you go. Download the free iPad app today.
There's more to business than the same old news. Bloomberg Business Week gives you the ideas, data, and insight to get ahead. Stories go behind the headlines to tell you something you don't already know. From global economics and companies to politics and technology. It's up to 80% off if you act now. Each week, Bloomberg Business Week goes deeper, takes you to new places, new people, shows you what other business magazines miss. Go to businessweek-subscriber.com/TV offer for this special Bloomberg TV offer. Act now.
Bloomberg Markets is the world's leading magazine in finance, covering the people, firms, and deals that move markets, featuring the industry players you want to know more about, giving you an insider's view of the world's most private firms, providing in-depth analysis on the business deals that happen behind closed doors, and covering emerging industries with insight and context. If you want the unique access and perspective that can only be found in Bloomberg Markets magazine, subscribe today at BloombergMarkets.com.
We're about 7 minutes into today's session, and as you can see, stocks ever so slightly higher. You do have green on the screens, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all moving, especially for the Dow and the S&P, marginally higher. The NASDAQ, the strongest of the three. Well, speaking of the NASDAQ and technology, Cisco, the world's largest computer equipment maker, reporting strong quarterly earnings last night. Job cuts kept costs down, price cuts brought in customers. The company also said it would substantially hike its dividend. Joining me now from Cisco headquarters is Chairman and CEO John Chambers. John, welcome. We're glad to have you. You have been reinventing Cisco, right, a number of times, it's fair to say, over the past few years. So is this quarter proof that your plan is working?
Well, Deirdre, we couldn't be more pleased with the quarter. We grew at a rate that was very solid year over year, with 7% growth and record revenues and record earnings per share. At the same time, we've probably never gained more market share versus our peers, very good competitors. It doesn't matter if it's routing or switching or the data center or mobility. And what it's doing is it's coming together not to sell plumbing, which I'm proud to do, Deirdre. It's a very honorable profession, and Cisco's made a lot of money doing it. But we're transforming ourselves to sell these products together, which allow governments and business to solve their top business problems. So to answer your question, we gave guidance for 4 to 6% growth this next quarter. Many of our large peers are forecasting flat to down quarters, and some of our competitors are actually forecasting down in double digits. So I'd say we're executing pretty well. Cisco does have a history of constantly reinventing itself, and I think we're well on our way to doing it once again.
John, you mentioned the switchers and the routers. competitors, these sales, the sales of these two products combined are about 50% of your revenue. And I was just looking through the quarter. I mean, sales were unchanged in the quarter for those two, even if you did gain market share. So how are you going to increase that top-line growth for these two products that do make up half of your revenue?
Well, Deirdre, it would help your listeners for me to just spend a second to explain that in Q4 of last year and Q1 of this last fiscal year as well, we had very, very good growth. That's before the market slowed down. So you're comparing growth in the teens to growth in a much slower market. That will balance itself out over this next year if we continue to execute well. It's also one that each time we sell data center, and it grew at 90% this year, and remember that's a market that many people thought we could not even participate in. So when you see revenue growth in Q4 of 90%, when our peers are maybe growing at 10%, it says the pieces to the puzzle are coming together. But what I was most proud of is what we did in the Olympics, where we helped achieve the British government goals, the Olympic Committee goals, NBC's goals on broadcast, etc. So we've turned from a plumber to helping solve business problems, and it's working pretty well so far.
Working pretty well indeed. I know there's two other product lines you just rather alluded to two, but collaboration tools, video tech, which you're talking about there. How are sales going to grow in these two areas? Because they declined in the quarter.
Sure. If you look at what's going on in the market, we're very pleased with the video progression. We acquired NDS. That will add about 2% growth to our video capability. We're pulling away from our peers. We're no longer just a set-top box provider. We are a provider that literally provides entertainment out of the cloud. So we're positioned well versus all our competitors on video, and I think most people in the market would give us very good grades there. And we've seen, even though the growth might be lumpy quarter to quarter, outstanding growth in video this year. The cloud feeds much of what's going on in collaboration. They were down a little bit this quarter. Europe was down in mid-30s, and U.S. federal government, as you might expect, was down in the mid-20s. So, again, we saw two areas of our collaboration business slow down. Key takeaway, it's coming together pretty well, Deirdre.
Okay, so you mentioned Europe and you mentioned the U.S., and obviously you're very tied to the economies of both of these continents. What is your growth outlook? How confident are you that the U.S. can get back on track? How confident are you that Europe can at least hold steady?
Well, Deirdre, probably the key takeaway from the quarter, and it's too early to call it a trend for sure, was what occurred in the U.S. 12 to 18 months ago, we were the first company to signal a slowdown, first occurring in state and local government, then in the enterprise accounts, then in the federal government, and then in commercial. What was exciting is the second half of the last quarter, we saw each of those turn up. Not something to do backflips over yet, but the federal business started to perform a little bit better, still negative in double digits, but state and local was up in the mid-teens. We also saw our enterprise business go from 1% growth to 4% growth. We saw our commercial business strengthen as well, and we saw our largest accounts, what we call global enterprise accounts, move from double-digit negative one quarter before to double-digit positive. If we see this trend for another quarter and in Q1, then we would call it a major trend, and that gets pretty exciting because I believe the U.S. has to lead us out of this slowdown. Asia Pacific is solid, 12% growth year over year. They're very comfortable with what's going on in China, Japan, Australia, etc. Europe's going to continue to be a challenge. Our business there is going from 13% growth a year ago to 7% growth to 0 to down 6. And so I think we're going to model Europe tougher for the next couple of quarters. The U.S. has a good chance of leading us out of this slowdown. I think personally that it will.
And John, mentioning Europe and the inherent weakness that may be there for the next few quarters, does this mean more job cuts? We know you've already made some big cuts, about 2% of the workforce so far this year. Will more have to follow?
Well, Deirdre, what we've done is while we unfortunately had to lay off, and let's be very realistic, that's what it was, about 1,300 people, we also added 1,400 people at the same time. We added over 700 of those 1,400 into emerging markets, and unfortunately you can't transfer a person from a developed country into an emerging market. We also added 500 college grads. So what you're seeing is us realign our resources and really focus for where our growth would be. Back to our 5 basic foundational blocks, and you articulated it well earlier. Intelligent networks, video, the data center with cloud, the ability to do collaboration, and tie those together architecturally to solve our customers' business problems. That's where we're focused with security and mobility over top of it.
John, we thank you so much for the time. Congratulations on the quarter. John Chambers, CEO of Cisco. Well, coming up, Facebook's lockup for early
Hello, kitties. This is Alice Cooper on Buy and Try. Listen, or I'll get poison. Hello, kitties. This is Alice Cooper on Buy and Try.
Let's go.
Ansatz gar nicht so schlecht, bin ich gar nicht unzufrieden. Fehlt mir nur ein bisschen Soße, hier ein bisschen Parfum, also Kräuter, ein dummer Gumau, aber korrekt angerichtet. Doch, gut gemacht, kann man jetzt sagen. Ne? Lamm und Bohnen. Hier erstmal schön gebraten. Dann haben die Kandidaten den Pfannensatz genommen und haben daraus so eine Schalotten oder so eine Zwiebel so mit Rotwein gemacht. Richtig gut geworden. Richtig gut geworden. Und da muss man nochmal sagen, die auch ganz toll gebraten, dann geht schön mit der Soße. Nur Kinder, ihr müsst aufpassen, wenn ihr solche Soßen kocht. Ich sag ja immer, würzen durch Einkochen, nicht durch Würzen. Aber wenn ihr zu lange einkocht, trennt sich das Fett von Wasser. Und dann hat man hier so eine Planscheblinsche. Ja? Da kann man dann sagen, ja, das ist ein mediterraner Stil, wie so aussehen. Ja? Aber kochtechnisch nicht ganz korrekt, das muss miteinander verbunden sein. Ein Stück Butter rein, durchrühren, fertig. So läuft das. Aber Hauptgang, ganz klar, beide gut, beide lecker, aber Soße. Currywurst geht auch nicht ohne Soße, Weißwein vor. Ja. Ricotta mit Früchten und Walnusstopping. Ja gut. Manchmal ist eben nichts da, da muss man eben aus nichts was machen. Ne? Sehr lecker. Schöne Ricotta. Ernst jetzt? Ja, wir sind live. Schöne Ricotta-Creme und dann schön hier mit den Früchten und hier oben das Topping auch, muss ich sagen, das ist sehr gut gelungen. Das mag ich immer. Und das ist ja wirklich die Kunst. Ne? Wenn ich jetzt 335 Zutaten habe, dann mache ich euch ein Dessert, ja, da erscheint euch ja. Aber mal hier zu sagen, hier, bam, 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 den grundsätzlichen Dingen lecker zu kochen, auch für euch zu Hause, ganz, ganz wichtig. Man braucht nicht viel. Frisch, Lust und lecker. Und das ist es. Ricotta Obstdörfchen. So. Und so ein Törtchen muss man erstmal machen. Ja. Sehr schöne Creme. Und sehr schön auch mit den Früchten zusammen. Dann haben wir hier so einen kleinen Wiener Boden. Ich kann das mal hier zeigen. Hier. Sehr schön. Auch hier. Lecker. Aus einfachen Zutaten viel gemacht. Aber ganz klar der Pluspunkt. Es wird noch gebacken. Also noch eine wirklich technische Herausforderung. Von daher ganz klar für mich heute weiß gewonnen.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch! Guten Applaus, meine Damen, kommt her heran! Herzlichen Glückwunsch! Das ist der Warenkorb für die nächste Sendung. 10 Sekunden Zeit. Ja. Rotbade und was für eine Chance mal hier. Ja, vom Besten. Auf die Uhr noch gut ist? Naja. Also, meine Damen, 1000 Euro gewonnen. Gehen wir weiter oder nicht?
Nee, die waren uns nicht an den Fisch.
Ihr traut den Fisch, alles klar, sag herzlichen Glückwunsch zu 1000 Euro. Und nochmal großen Glückwunsch an die Männer. Das heißt Glückwunsch aber, super gekocht. Das bedeutet, morgen 2 neue Teams. Wieder Warenkorb and the one and only Frank Steinbeil Rosin. Ich sage jetzt hier direkt heute und freue mich schon auf die morgige Sendung. Hier, Stadtjährlich.
Was passiert mit Julian Assange? Der Streit um den WikiLeaks-Gründer ist eines unserer Themen heute in Europa. Herzlich willkommen. Showdown in London. Polizei droht mit Festnahme von Julian Assange. Und Reise zum Mars. Niederländer wollen die Erde verlassen. Ein Australier, der in der ecuadorianischen Botschaft in London sitzt, weil er nicht nach Schweden ausgeliefert werden will, weil er dort wiederum befürchten müsste, in die USA abgeschoben zu werden. ist kompliziert.
Stands out there. I know that I'll be tuned a lot more this time around.
All right, from technology to baseball, we have it covered for you, Don. Thanks very much. That does do it for In the Loop. Thanks very much for joining us. Tomorrow, former Fed Governor Randy Kroszner is going to be in the loop. We're going to be focusing on the U.S. economy, how it is playing in the presidential race. Paul Ryan, as you know, on the Republican ticket. He is going to help us digest what that means for the economy. First up, though, we are about a half an hour into the trading session. We have you covered here on Bloomberg Television. Scarlet Fu, Stephanie Rule, here to kick off Market Makers. What's coming up?
Big day. We have to continue to look at this LIBOR scandal growing. 5 additional banks subpoenaed. We need to find out what's this going to mean to bank stocks.
And we have more economic data. Philly Fed is coming up next.
Market Makers starts right now.
Live from Bloomberg headquarters in New York, this is Market Makers with Eric Schatzker and Stephanie Rule.
It's 10 a.m. here in New York City. I'm Stephanie Rule. And I'm Scarlett Fu, filling in for Eric Schatzker. This is Market Makers. We have a flat market right now as we await the latest piece of economic data. We do have Philly Fed coming out in about 6 seconds. Right now, the expectation among economists is for a read of -5. And what we got instead was a worse than expected read at -7.1. Last month, at 12.9. So this marks a 4th straight month of contraction in the Philly Fed. The last time.
You're watching Impact with me, Karen grants diplomatic asylum to the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. He's been holed up in the country's London embassy for the past 2 months, avoiding extradition to Sweden to face sexual assault allegations. Reports of new horror in Syria, bomb strikes in the northern city of Azaz leave 40 dead, including women and children. In a landmark ruling, a British man paralysed from the neck down has been told his doctors can't help him to take his own life.
For centuries, this city has stood as a symbol of Uyghur identity, but now more than half of it has been torn down and thousands of families have already left.
Return to the Silk Road, we revisit the scene of China's worst ethnic violence in decades to see how it's been recovering. And Prince Philip continues his stay in hospital in Scotland due to a recurring bladder infection. That's all coming up on Impact. Hello and welcome. Ecuador has announced it will grant asylum to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Speaking in Quito, the Ecuadorian foreign minister strongly condemned the British authorities for saying they could empower police to enter Ecuador's London embassy to arrest Mr. Assange, who's been staying there to avoid extradition to Sweden. Mr. Assange is wanted in Sweden for questioning over sexual assault allegations. Peter Barnes has the latest.
It's very nearly 2 months since Julian Assange entered this building in London, which houses the Embassy of Ecuador. He asked for asylum. He's been trying to avoid extradition to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning in connection with sex crimes. Today, Ecuador's foreign minister confirmed that asylum would be granted to Julian Assange.
We believe that his fears are legitimate, and there are the threats that he could face political persecution if the measures aren't taken to avoid them.
In Britain, one of Julian Assange's key supporters welcomed the Ecuadorian decision.
A sovereign country has determined, found in his favour, in fact, that you know it's reasonable for him to fear for his life. So yes, I think this does change it for him, and it's important.
A short time after the statement from Quito, Julian Assange gave this reaction. It is a significant victory for myself and my people. Things will probably get more stressful now. The Ecuadorian foreign minister had also expressed anger over what he called Britain's threats to enter the embassy in London.
It's basically saying we're going to beat you savagely if you don't behave. But if you behave, we may not beat you savagely, depending on how you behave. This government is manifesting its open intention to resort to this kind of action.
Julian Assange may be stuck inside the Ecuadorian embassy for some time yet. In London, the police remain poised to arrest him should he try to leave the building. Peter Biles, BBC News.
Sound like first. Sorry about the premature end to that report by Peter Biles, and we were going to bring you some comments. Actually, you've been sending them in via Twitter. Let's just take you through some of the thoughts so far. Dunya Brown has written, from a British Ecuadorian citizen living in Ecuador, everything is just posturing. Concerned the British embassy will be closed. Opula Ahmed, Assange has the right to express himself. It's for others to confirm or discredit his claims. Melvin Hall says, let Ecuador go through the motions and get him into a waiting car, then arrest him. No fuss and diplomatically correct. Mordecai Musange says, Assange has rights. Kudos to Ecuador. Well, thanks very much for getting in touch. You can continue to have your say on that story or others on Impact Today. Get in touch via Twitter. I'm at BBC Karen G. There's also plenty of comment on our Facebook page too, BBC World News. Now, just when you may think we've already heard worse violence in Syria, there are reports of another horrific incident, this time in Azaz, in Aleppo province near the Turkish border. Human Rights Watch, which visited the site, says a Syrian government fighter jet bombed a residential neighbourhood, killing more than 40 people and wounding at least 100 others, including women and children. Many of the pictures we've seen are too shocking to bring you, and many people are believed to have been buried in rubble of destroyed homes. Now, separately, over in New York, the UN Security Council is due to discuss the prospect of ending its observer mission in Syria. Well, we're going to talk to our correspondent Barbara Plepp, who's at the UN headquarters there in New York. But let's just first talk to Kevin Connolly, monitoring events from Beirut. And Kevin, this latest incident in Azaz, what more do we know about what happened?
Well, as you say, it is grim, shocking stuff, and a great deal of what we've seen we can't show, but this was a Syrian government air raid. Local people in Azaz, which is a small town close to the Turkish border, say that it was a rocket dropped on the civilian half of the town. They say there were no rebel targets for the government air force to hit there, and the pictures, some of which we have been able to show, of course, show angry, emotional crowds working desperately on mountains of rubble to dig out survivors. In many of the images, the bodies of the dead, an arm here, a leg there, can be seen reaching lifelessly out from under huge blocks of concrete from collapsed buildings. So it's a really shocking scene of devastation. I guess when the chronicle of the Syrian civil war comes to be written, it will be seen as simply one more incident. But when you see these things up close, they are desperately shocking and depressing. And it's worth recording, of course, that there is still no end in sight to this. And operations by the Syrian Air Force, by Syrian government artillery, are continuing today.
Kevin, thanks very much for the update on the latest violence. In the light of that, Barbara Plett in New York at the UN headquarters. Barbara, what exactly is being discussed about the UN's observer mission?
Well, as you know, the UN observers have been on the ground for some months, but since June, really, they have suspended their main patrols and their operations, saying that the violence was just too great for them as unarmed.
Grüß Gott, Frau Pusch. Wieso dürfen, hier ist Herr Dauer, wieso dürfen meine Sozialhilfeempfänger nicht in Urlaub? Oder meinen Sie, die machen sowieso Urlaub? Weil München irgendwann langweilt's, mehr oder weniger. Ich rufe Sie an, weil die Hausbesitzer haben heute schon wieder 2 Bomben auf mich geworfen. Ich will auf jeden Fall in der Früh rausgehen zum Einkaufen und dann will ich aus der Türe rausgehen, die unten Haustüre, die sperrangelweit offen steht, kommt mir schon eine Frau, eine junge Dame entgegen, erste Bombe. Da frage ich einmal, machen Sie die Haustür immer auf? Also die ist so eingeklemmt. Ich habe gesagt, wenn keiner einen Einbruch macht, ist wurscht, da sind aber immer Fremde drin. Gell. Auf jeden Fall geht dann raus, dann fällt die Tür zu, dann kommt schon die nächste Bombe. Irgendwie so ein 20-Jähriger. Und die junge Dame macht ihm einer ich habe die Tür wieder zugemacht, sie macht ihm die Tür wieder auf. Und sagt er, okay. Steht er vor der Türe, macht er meiner von die Haustüre auf, dann sagt er, okay. Also schon wieder 2 Bomben.
Now, across the border, 11 people have died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan, including 7 international service members. The cause of the crash, which Afghan authorities said was in the southern province of Kandahar, was under investigation. At least 3 of those killed were American troops. 4 Afghans also died, 3 members of the security forces and 1 Afghan civilian interpreter. 7 people arrested in connection with phone hacking charges at the British newspaper, The News of the World, have appeared in court in London. They include Andy Coulson, the former editor of the newspaper, who was also a former press secretary of Prime Minister David Cameron. They face a total of 19 charges, including conspiring to unlawfully intercept the voicemail messages of Hollywood stars, politicians, and victims of crime. A court in the South Korean capital Seoul has sentenced one of the country's top industrialists to 4 years in jail. The judge said Kim Sung-yoon, in the middle of the picture here, had shown no remorse for siphoning funds from the Hanwha group of companies for his own personal gain. He was also found guilty of dodging taxes by using the names of his employees when he traded shares. Now, staying on the peninsula, North Korea's Olympians have been welcomed as heroes in Pyongyang after a better-than-expected performance at the Games, the London 2012 Games. Now, officials and hundreds of well-wishers greeted the athletes. They were led off the plane at Sunan International Airport by the weightlifting gold medalist Kim Eun-guk. Now, thousands more lined the streets of the capital Pyongyang to cheer on the athletes as their convoy passed through the capital. Now, North Korea equalled their best ever Olympic gold medal haul of 4. That was 20 years ago, back at the Barcelona Games. The 2012 team won 3 gold medals in weightlifting, as well as 1 in judo. And it also collected 2 bronze medals in weightlifting and wrestling. So there's one Olympic team returning home. So rapturous applause there in North Korea. A lot of excitement, as you can see from those pictures, and their convoy through the streets of Pyongyang. Now, the headlines are coming up in just a moment. Also, the transformation of a Chinese city, but are the economic gains destroying a minority culture? Stay with us.
Where pandas live. Real China. Chengdu.
When you plant a seed, big ideas can grow. I present a TV debate in Nepal called Staatsanwalt. One guest was a farmer who talked about a pioneering idea to boost food production. Thousands of farmers began to use his techniques transforming their lives for the better. My name is Narayan Shrestha, and this is my Media Action.
To find out more, go to bbcmediaaction.org/world.
You're watching Impact on BBC World News with me, Karen Giannoni. Our top stories. Ecuador has granted political asylum to the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. They say he's in danger of being persecuted. Syrian government forces continue to bombard the city of Aleppo as details emerge of an airstrike on the nearby town of Azaz. 2 victims of so-called locked-in syndrome here in the UK have lost their battles at the High Court for the right to end their lives when they are ready with medical help. One of the men is this man, Tony Nicholson. Now, he was left almost completely paralysed by a stroke. The father of 2 has described his life as undignified and intolerable. Now, he wanted reassurance that any doctor who ended his life for him wouldn't be prosecuted. The BBC's Branwen Jeffries is outside the court in London. She says this was an extremely difficult decision for the judges.
Well, the judges, in dealing with the 2 complex cases that will be before them, first of all, Tony Nicholson, who has been left almost totally paralysed by a devastating stroke and wants help to end his life, and also a second man we know only as Martin, who's asking for clarification. Under what circumstances would a doctor or another professional face disciplinary action or legal action if they helped him end his life? The judges have refused both men's attempts to change the law in England and Wales. They say this touched on very profound principles, that it was not for the court to decide. However, they made it very clear, all 3 High Court judges, that they have the utmost sympathy for the men's predicaments. They described their circumstances as deeply moving. Lord Justice Toulson, one of the High Court judges, said their desire to have control of the ending of their lives demands the most careful and sympathetic consideration. But in the end, the judges have decided that this is not a matter for the courts, that this is something that should be debated by society as a whole in the UK, and is a matter for our Parliament.
Branwen Jeffries, while giving their reaction to the High Court ruling, Mr Nicholson's wife Jane said their fight will continue.
We're just bitterly disappointed. It was obviously not what we wanted. It's not totally unexpected. And it's not the end by any means. We've always known that whoever wins, the other side will appeal, and we will definitely be appealing.
Can you tell us why they've turned you down?
They say basically that it's for Parliament to decide. The judgment is incredibly one-sided.
My issue is that we've had so far this year now makes your price target look very out of date. I've got you at 67. The stock is trading at 72. So do you think it? I mean, what's going on? Do you think it will decline from here?
I don't. I look back at that price target. The last time we updated that was May. 2 things. Number one, our price targets are based on estimates, and they beat us and guided up. So estimates are going higher. The second thing is, if you look back to 06, 07, when Walmart comped more consistently positive, it traded at 15, 16 times. So you have about a turn of valuation ahead of you as well. Kind of wrap that all in. I think the market's going to think about you get another 10% of this stock into year end on something that's up over 20% year to date. Over 4 months for a low beta defensive stock, we think that's pretty good.
At what point, Chris, should we start getting concerned about Walmart's valuation?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, 06, 07, when they were more consistent, people focused very much on the U.S. division. That it traded at 15, 16 times. Right now, you're a turn below that. Now, usually over the balance of the year, these stocks move into out-year valuation. We see about a turn. So if we get another turn on PE, we're trading at 16 times. Then you have to start to get a little bit more concerned in terms of price for perfection.
At this point, now that Walmart has turned the corner in terms of same-store sales, the first straight year of positive comps there, how should we start thinking about the sales that they're going to get in the future? Is it a share take from competitors, a share take from JCPenney or Sears or Target?
Yep, I think when they went back and added back assortment starting in July of 10, and that's a process that completed at the end of 11, they added back assortment, they invested in price, they're taking the marketing message up. When you turn big ships like this, we saw it with Home Depot, the trend lasts a lot longer than people think because the consumer is saying, hey, you know what, I've had a better experience, I'm going to go back there more often, and I'm going to fill up my basket more. So, yeah, comps get tough in 2013, but certainly into the back half here, we expect continued strong trends.
Chris, what are they telling us? What is our takeaway from what they're telling us on the broader economy? We had some great retail sales figures a couple of sessions ago, and the market got really enthusiastic about that, and obviously it fed into expectations for the Fed. But the CFO of Walmart is saying today that the paycheck cycle remains pronounced. In other words, they continue to see signs that customers are strapped, spending more at the beginning of the month when they get their paychecks. That is not a good signal, is it?
No, it's not. I think two things there. Number one, on the international side, it became more pronounced sequentially. It remained pronounced in the U.S. On the international side, comps decelerated in 4 out of 6 key geographies. So it seems like that global uncertainty is impacting some of the broader international markets more than the U.S. In the U.S., all these retail management teams are really concerned about the election, about uncertainty around tax policy. And I think the consumers, they're seeing that with their consumer behavior in terms of volatility. So there is certainly an element of caution as we think about the consumer for the back half.
Chris, one last quick question. Are you concerned about the allegations of what went on in Mexico? Is it material for you in the stock? I see the Financial Times is carrying another article on that today about how Washington appears to be rallying to the cause.
Yeah, they absolutely. I think with a large global company like Walmart, it's easy to pick on them, not excusing the potential behavior if something did occur that was wrong. I think the risk is if we lose a senior executive. Otherwise, generally, this company is so large, it's bigger than any single person.
Okay. Chris, good to talk to you. Thanks for the
Thank you
analysis.
very much.
Chris Horvath's there, joining us from JP Morgan.
Apple's next frontier? Well, the tech titans reportedly in talks with major cable companies about a new set-top box for TV and other content, but is there more to this story than meets the eye? We'll have the lowdown straight ahead.
Water, our most precious natural resource. Nearly 1 billion people can't get it, yet communities with water to sell can find no buyers. And American farmers fight a sea of red tape just to water their crops. Different stories, one global crisis.
What do you switch to when you run out of water?
How long can we keep going to the well? A CNBC original report, Liquid Assets, the big business of water. Saturday at 2300 CET.
Are the seas of Asia forever eternally going to be a big disputed zone, or can nations in the Asia-Pacific learn to get along? Over the course of the past week, sovereignty claims have pitted South Korea versus Japan, and on the other hand, China versus Japan as well. Deng Xiaoping decades ago talked about joint development, but since then, it's only been talk. How to fix the problem? We investigate on Straight Talk.
Straight Talk with Bernie Lowe, Sunday on CNBC.
Worldwide exchange, global news, market agenda.
A volatile session for stocks around the globe. We talk to world leaders and key newsmakers.
There needs to be constructive dialogue between regulators and banks.
You can't actually see me in this wall because we've still got so much red going on.
Going where the story takes us.
Setting up the trading day in the U.S.
Well, so this is the hand that Europe's giving over to the United States.
Worldwide exchange, weekdays at 10 CET on CNBC.
This week on Access Middle East. With over 60 million subscribers and half the market share, they're Turkey's largest mobile phone operator.
I think this is a very interesting, fast-changing region of the world, and there is a technology revolution going around.
We sit down with Turkcell CEO Süreyya Çelik this week on Access Middle East.
63.41 as a level right now. Is this a sign that traders think ECB will take action soon? Let's get the money motion trade. Willie Williams is with Societe Generale. He joins us now. Willie, great to see you.
Thank you.
You're actually opting to stand away from the euro trade. Why is that?
Well, I think the euro was caught in between two opposing forces. On one hand, we have the market is waiting to see will there be
Ja, das tun sie unten im Hof von meinem Balkon immer diskutieren, so 20-jährige und 20-jährige Frauen. Da sagt er, was heißt aha, das habe ich schon 100-mal gesagt. Sagst du, das sollen wir Europacks kaufen, also sollen wir wegen den Typen der Europacks kaufen. Sollen mit Europacks in der eigenen Wohnung rumliegen, oder? Ja, da sagt er immer zu den Frauen, das ist geil, da läuft auf meinem Grund und Boden rum, gell. Und dann ist das mein Grund und Boden. Hab's gemietet. Und wer hat's dann gemietet? Hm? Ich habe 3 vom Hof, das steht in jedem Mietvertrag. Außerdem gehörte mir auch ein 30. Ich habe aber 30 gemietet. Außerdem habe ich in Kaufbeuern wieso soll er das machen? Ich habe bloß gesagt, dass er da rumläuft und so zu seinen Tussis immer sagt, da sagt er zu mir, er will mich köpfen. Ja, doch, er sagt, ich gehöre geköpft. Ja, die immer wechseln, ich weiß nicht, was das für ein Geschäft ist. Da lassen sie sich immer stapelweise Papier anliefern und dann laufen immer so lauter Frauen rum. Ich weiß nicht, was das sein soll. Ja, mein Herz aber. Es ist immerhin lauter als Fernsehen. Dann kommt wieder so ein ostdeutscher 20-Jähriger und bedroht mich da, gell. Das gehört. Ja, da kommt wieder so ein 20-jähriger Ostdeutscher und bedroht mich da, gell. Irgendwie so ein Hurensohn von irgendeinem so einem Soldaten aus der DDR-Soldaten. Da muss er bei mir rumlaufen, gell. So bleibt er nicht in Sachsen. Das kapiere ich einfach nicht. Ich sage ja dauernd, die Mauer muss aufgebaut werden, aber wieder aufgebaut werden, aber diesmal doppelt so hoch, dass der Dreck wirklich nicht mehr rüberkommt. Und das sind Langfinger, das sind Diebe, das sind völlig schwachsinnige Kriminelle. Kapier's endlich mal. Glaubst du, das ist irgendwie Späßchen da mit dem Honig oder was? Das sind ostdeutsche Diebe. Auf jeden Fall sehe ich jetzt gerade wieder einen Löscher im Fernsehen. Löscher von Siemens, der Österreicher. Das ist auf jeden Fall noch krimineller als der DDR-Typ. Der Löscher und seine Kumpane haben die Schläge an der Schule bezahlt. Jetzt haben wir die Siemens-Schläger bezahlt. Ja gut, man kann ja juristisch sagen, als Staatsanwalt Rauferei. Es war aber keine Rauferei. Es war Erpressung, Mutter. Erpressung von Siemens. Brauchst du gar nicht aufhören. Man könnte ja sagen, nach der Schulpflicht geht's nicht mehr. Sie stehen aber schon 30 Jahre später immer noch vor meiner Sozialwohnung. Das ist der Löscher, die Drecksau, der Österreicher.